Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm excited to share with you the process behind one of my recent oil paintings. This painting is a scene from Hida no Sato, which is a beautifully preserved open-air museum in Takayama, Japan. If you've been following my channel for a little while, you might recognize aspects of this scene. It's the same location as a gouache painting I did last year. I will link that video down below if you're interested in checking it out. But this time, I wanted to revisit the subject in oil and focus on a different landscape and traditional Gasshō-zukuri house to really explore the textures and depth that oil paint allows in a landscape painting. For those unfamiliar, Hida no Sato is an open-air architectural museum located just outside the city of Takayama. It features over 30 traditional homes and farmhouses that were built during Japan's Edo period, which was between 1603 and 1868. The videos I have on screen are from Shirakawa, which is a nearby UNESCO World Heritage Site that contains several of these beautiful traditional homes. I began this piece the same way I begin most of my oil paintings, with a thin wash of burnt sienna to tone the canvas. This helps eliminate that stark white background and gives a warm base that subtly comes through in the final piece. Once that dried, I loosely sketched in the composition with a thinned out mix of oil paint. I don't typically spend a lot of time on this stage, just enough to lay out the basic shapes and values so I have a roadmap to follow. I like keeping it loose and flexible so I can make adjustments as I go. I use paint thinner to let this layer dry fast. Next came blocking in color, which is one of my favorite parts of the process. I usually work from background to foreground, starting with large areas of color. In this case, I painted the sky and the distant mountain range first, using a muted palette of white, cool blues, and grays. I like to keep the background fairly soft and atmospheric so it recedes and gives that feeling of depth. This area has a lot more cerulean blue in it than other areas. As objects fade into the background, like mountains, the atmosphere gives them a blue hue. Adding blue to your piece gives the appearance of things in the distance. The centerpiece of the museum, and of my painting, is the Gasshō-zukuri house, known as prayer hand style because of the steep triangular shape of the roof that mimics hands in prayer. These homes are perfectly adapted to this mountainous region, especially for withstanding heavy snowfall in the winter. The thatched roof allows snow to slide right off, and the steep pitch provides ample attic space, which is often used for silkworm cultivation. As an architecture student, I found these homes absolutely fascinating. From there, I gradually moved into the mid-ground trees, ground colors, and eventually the foreground foliage. One of the biggest challenges in this piece was the dense vegetation. There were so many different shades of green. You'll see throughout this time lapse, I spent a lot of time mixing and layering greens, adding cooler tones in shadowed areas and warmer tones where the light hit the leaves. To paint the details in the trees, I had to rotate the canvas upside down and on its side to paint in the tiny branches. For my canvas paintings, I find it easier to just rotate the canvas to paint in small details. I can use gravity to taper my brush in the right direction and paint in the direction that the branches are growing. Once I had established all of these tiny branches, I began to layer in the many colors of the trees and their leaves. As I moved into the main subject, the Gasshō-zukuri house, I slowed down quite a bit. Capturing the unique triangular structure of the roof, the wooden beams, and the subtle aging of the materials was a very rewarding and challenging experience. These houses have such a distinct character, and I wanted to convey that sense of age and care that comes with a building that's been standing for hundreds of years. The building continues to get more and more hidden beneath the foliage the more I worked on the piece. You'll notice the small hatch near the top of the roof. That's actually a vent, allowing airflow up through the upper floors of the house. It's a simple detail, but it's one of the things that makes this architecture so ingenious. I used a mix of brush strokes with finer brushes to bring out the texture in the foliage. By the end of this painting, the home is almost hidden by the level of vegetation surrounding it. Its thatch roof sort of blends it into the forest. One of the reasons I love working in oil, especially for scenes like this, is the freedom to just slow down. Oil paint stays wet for a long time, especially in comparison to gouache, which lets me come back and revisit areas over the course of days and sometimes even weeks. This painting took me several weeks of short sessions to complete, which in comparison to my gouache paintings is much longer. It's such a different pace, and I find that it really allows me to sort of sink into the details. Whether it's a subtle change in color temperature, softening the edges, or just playing with brush texture. My previous oil painting actually took me about 8 months to finish, working in bits and pieces. So in comparison, this one came together a lot faster. Looking back at the painting now, I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. It feels like a peaceful little window into a place that left a big impression on me. Painting this scene again in oil gave me a deeper appreciation for the subject and the landscape of the Japanese countryside. If you're ever in Japan and you find yourself in Takayama, I highly recommend visiting Hida no Sato and Shirakawa. It's such a special place, especially if you're interested in traditional architecture or just love quiet, reflective environments. Thank you so much for joining me on this painting time lapse. If you enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a thumbs up, subscribing to the channel, and leaving a comment below. I'd love to hear what you think of the piece, or if you have ever painted or visited this kind of location yourself. See you in the next one!